Hey guys, I hope that you are all doing well. I miss you guys so much. So I'm here today. It is Friday, April 17th, and we're going to continue with our reading of The Unteachables. It's hard to believe that we're coming to the end of our story. When we started this story, we were in our classroom and able to have discussions, and now I'm talking to a computer screen, but we're making the most out of the situation. So, in our story, Mr. Kermit is at the science fair, okay? The students have just presented their project. Parker is coming back up with Grams. He's driving the car. The car's on not the car's on fire. The banner's on fire, so there is a lot going on. So, that's where we are going to pick up today. Suddenly, some guy in a suit steps from the parking lot right into the road in front of me. A slam on the brakes, sending the car into a skid. At the last second, the suit guy hurls himself out of the way, somersaulting through a flower bed. The car fishtails around and launches to a halt right before the three judges. Mr. Carstairs runs up with a fire extinguisher and puts out the burning banner with a sea of foam. That's all that's left, is a single word hanging from the limp antenna. Fire. Like we didn't know that already. Half the science fair is out on the lawn gawking at me, horrified. I say the thing I've been rehearsing all along. Ta-da! It doesn't go as well as I expected. Jake rushes over and helps Grams out of the car. The eggplant drops to the pavement and splits open. Miss Fountain comes for me. From the direction of the flower bed, the guy I almost hit marches up, red with fury under a layer of mud that cakes his face and expensive suit. Oh man, it's Dr. Thaddeus, the superintendent. Who's the driver? He rages. I'll have you arrested, you lunatic. How dare you? His voice trails off when he realizes he's talking to a kid. It's an awkward moment. None of the adults have the guts to say anything because most of them are teachers, and this mudball is their boss. The only person who speaks is Grams. Who do you think you are? She storms at a stunned Dr. Thaddeus. You ought to be ashamed of yourself, a lowlife who hasn't got the sense to put on a clean suit. Where do you go off yelling at my grandson? My grandson! Then she says it. My grandson, Parker. Parker. She called me Parker. A lot of crazy things happened this morning, like when our banner caught on fire and the eggplant got ruined, and I almost killed the superintendent, obviously. But for me, today will always be remembered as the greatest day ever, because Grams remembered my name. Chapter 30, Aldo Broth. Just because you've got anger management problems doesn't mean there isn't plenty to be ticked off about. Second, the internal combustion engine finished second in the district science fair. It would have been better to finish 150th than come so close to winning. Only to take an L. I don't care about the trophy. You can find that plastic junk at any dollar store. But we were a hair away from saving Ribbit. And they gave the first place to a bunch of dweebs whose teacher didn't need saving. I barely remember their project. Some windmill thingy. No one's ever going to forget ours. Definitely not the fire department, who had to spray down all those bushes and trees because of conflagration containment. Whatever that means. Miss Fountain tries to make us feel better. You can't take it personally, she tells us on Monday morning. Your project was just as good as the wind turbine, but clean power is very hot these days. Hot? I echo. We set the whole street on fire. What could be hotter than that? She's patient. I mean popular. People care about the environment. Your project was wonderful, but internal combustion engines are so last century. How do you think everybody got to the science fair? Barnstorm challenges. They drove internal combustion engines. I'll bet no one came by wind turbine, Elaine adds in her usual rumble. Miss Fountain just sighs. I can't be mad at her. She wanted this every much as bit as we did. It was Ribbit who showed me that teachers aren't always the enemy, even when they make you do work or yell or take away your rabbit butts. It wasn't for Ribbit, I would have never have heard of where the red fern grows, which I'd be done with by now if we didn't drop everything to work on the science fair project. I can barely picture my life before I knew about Billy, Old Dan, and Little Ann, who feel like real people to me, except Old Dan and Little Ann, who are dogs. Poor Mr. Kermit, says Kiana. I can't believe we let him down. I don't want any more of that kind of talk, Miss Fountain lectures sternly. You didn't let him down, just the opposite. He's prouder of you now than he's ever been in any of the cases, and he loves his new car. Then how come he was afraid to drive it home from the science fair? Mateo asks. That's just because of the racing fuel, she explains. Once Jake drained all out and put in regular gas, Mr. Kermit was fine. He has the cutest nickname for it. He calls it Cocoa Nerd. Isn't that adorable? Miss Fountain thinks a lot of things are adorable. That's not my style. Maybe Vladimir, in a lizardly kind of way, and Old Dan and Little Ann, although I never met them in real life. Anyway, Ribbit might be psyched about his car, but he isn't psyched enough to come to school today. Even worse, her sub turns to be Dawn of the Dead again. To be honest, she's not this mean this time around. Some of that might be because we're so depressed about losing Ribbit that no one has the energy to give her much of a hard time. We drop a few textbooks, but our hearts aren't into it enough to get the timing right. Who can buzz out a fake power hum when the best teacher in the world is getting fired? You could have helped, but you failed. We deserve Dawn of the Dead. We deserve someone even meaner than her. I can't picture who that would be. Mateo probably knows. When she tells us to work, we don't argue with her. We don't groan and complain. We don't even goof off. I'm just as happy to get back to Old Dan and Little Ann. It might take my mind off of Ribbit and how we blew it for him. Dawn watches us for a few minutes, and then she sighs. All right, let's hear it. We stare at her blankly. Come on, she persists. Something's eating all of you. Just tell me what it is. It's like the dam breaks and we all start jabbering at the same time. Our teacher's getting fired for no reason at all. It's not fair. Dr. Thaddeus hates Mr. Kermit. He's worse than the Dementors. I should have run him over when I had the chance. It goes on and on. We never run out of complaints about how awful and unfair it is. It's the first time I've ever been in a class where everybody else is just as mad as I am. And we can't all have anger management issues. Sometimes mad is exactly what you're supposed to be. The amazing part is Dawn of the Dead doesn't chew us out or shut us down. She listens, which can't be easy with the 7 of us yelling over each other. Then she has a long conversation with Miss Fountain, who comes to see what the racket is about. The 2 of them are in the hall talking for what it seems like forever. Finally, the substitute walks back and faces us. Well, it seems I misjudged you people. She's wrong about that. Anything bad she thought about us last time goes double, because we had the opportunity to help Ribbit. We came up empty. Let's pause here, guys. We're coming kind of towards the end of our book, and the students are really placing the blame on themselves. But is it their fault? No, it's not their fault. Just because that this happened, they have done everything they possibly could to help Mr. Kermit save his job. And just because they didn't win first place doesn't mean it's their fault and Mr. Kermit's getting fired. Chapter 31, Mr. Kermit. The Cocoa Nerd is back, in a manner of speaking. Not that anybody would recognize it. It bears very little resemblance to the 1992 Chrysler Concorde Fiona picked out all those years ago. It looks like exactly what it is. A mean set of wheels designed by a bunch of 8th graders who think nothing is worth driving unless everybody's staring at it. Chrome, glitter paint, LED lights, tailpipes the size of cruise missiles, and an engine you can barely see over. I'm afraid to honk the horn. I know their taste in music. Even without the racing fuel, the thing is a rocket. The first time I dared to tap on the gas pedal, I nearly rear-ended a cement truck. Only Dale Earnhardt Jr. could drive this car. It should be outlawed by the government. I'm crazy about it. My kids built this for me. It's the second greatest gift they could have given me. Number one, being the sight of the superintendent Thaddeus diving headfirst into a muddy flower bed, coming up fragrant with fertilizer and a chrysanthemum behind its ear. They're the best class any soon-to-be ex-teacher could ever hope to have. They even put a frog logo in the honor of my last name, Kermit the Frog. Come to think of it, the frog theme has been in place since the beginning of the year. More proof the so-called Unteachables have better heads on their shoulders than anyone expected. I just never connected it with all the ribbiting before. I don't mind. It's kind of a tribute. On day one, a cop pulls me over to get a good look at what I'm driving. The officer writes out a ticket, giving me 1 week to cover up the engine. I call Jake, who promises to put a hood that complies with the law. He also agrees to raise the seat 4 inches so I'll be able to see the road in front of me. I don't want the kids working on it. I insist over the phone. They have done enough for me already. I've loved being their sponsor. Jake replies, they're a fantastic group. A brief pause. Too bad not all your class measured up to their level. He's 1,000% about that. Who would know that Jake, who single-handedly made 1992 class a nightmare and messed up my life in the process? On the other hand, 1992 was a long time ago. In 1992, the Coco Nerd was just a car. Today, it's a weapon of mass destruction. The transformation Jake Terranova has been no less dramatic. He's a businessman, an entrepreneur, a grown-up, a solid citizen who has done so much for the Unteachables. Plus, a few days ago, I spotted his Porsche parked in front of the Greenwich Diamond Exchange, and Jake himself examining velvet trays of rings. Fiona's daughter could definitely do worse. People change, I tell my former student. You're a good guy, Jake. Jake actually gets choked up on the other line. I've never ruined anyone's life, but apparently it's almost as hard on the messer as it is on the messy. I go back to school on Wednesday, not because I care one way or the other whether the place is still standing, but because I don't want the kids to think I blame them for not winning the science fair. In fact, the opposite is true. They exceeded my widest expectations. They've been doing this on a daily basis ever since they dumped the Vuvuzuela shipment into the river. Another thing about the new and improved Coco Nerd, it's unparkable. Those external tailpipes make it as wide as a ferry boat, but I finally get it jammed between Emma's Prius and the pickup truck belonging to Elias's farm. The door opens and I have enough of 4 inches of clearing to squeeze myself through. Amazingly, I make it. I've been slimming down lately thanks to the mustard on toast diet. Since I'm going to be out of a job soon, maybe it's time to reinvent myself as a weight loss guru. I'll be rich. Or at least I'll be able to afford gas for the Coco Nerd. It's 585 horsepower engine. I barely set foot in the entrance when Principal Vargas rushes up and grabs me by the arm. Zachary, I need to talk to you. Later, I promise. I just want to reassure my class. Now! And she literally drags me into her office and shuts the door. She's obviously been staking out the front hall. It can only mean one thing. Thaddeus is using the events of the science fair to fire me effective immediately. The superintendent is so mad, he won't even let me finish out the semester. So, I say bitterly, is Thaddeus planning to axe me in person, or has he got you doing his dirty work for him? I answer, and she presses a copy of the Greenwich Telegraph into my hands. I don't even glance down at it. How do you like it, Christina? On some level, I regret unloading my emotions on the principal, who had never been anything except supportive, but I'm just too upset to hold it inside. How does it feel to wield the hatchet for him? Read it, Zachary, she orders. And that's where we're going to stop for today. So, on the next page, if you look at it, it says superintendent to super teacher, you're fired. So, it looks like the newspaper has caught wind of what's happening and they wrote an article about it. So, think about what that article is going to say next time we read. All right, guys, I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Enjoy the sunshine, and I'll talk to you all soon. Bye-bye.